few country songs. Brother Jerry hadn't got to hear many of these because usually when I'm with you, I'm in church, aren't I? Pastor Jerry has often had me at his church down in Florida, and we always do gospel programs there, of course. But tonight we're in the coffee house, so I thought I'd start out with a few little country songs, which we don't often get to do. I just celebrated my 50th anniversary with the Grand Ole Opry on February 6th. Now, that's really not such a big deal because it pales in comparison with Little Jimmy Dickens. Little Jimmy Dickens has been at the Opry for 62 years. I think he's in his 80s now, pretty high up in his 80s. Maybe Derek can tell me, he probably knows, because Little Jimmy Dickens is from West Virginia, Bolt, I believe. But he's been at the Opry for 62 years. Of course, he's in the Country Music Hall of Fame down in Nashville, and he still sings at the Opry most every weekend. He doesn't travel much anymore, but we have the pleasure of his company most every weekend. One of the first songs I ever learned to sing down in Winston-Salem when I was trying to learn to play the guitar was this one here, which was made famous by Little Jimmy Dickens. It tells all about how he got his education, and so did I, out behind the bar. My pappy used to tan my hide up behind the barn, taught me to be dignified up behind the barn. Now when he took his strap to me and turned me down across his knee, he sure did hurt my dignity out behind the bar. I smoked my first cigarette out behind the bar. That's one day I won't forget, out behind the bar. I got so sick you should have seen how that tobacco turned me green. I almost died from nicotine out behind the bar. I got my education out behind the bar, and I'm not fooling no siree. Passed each examination out behind the bar, but it almost made a break out of me. This next verse almost got me kicked out of high school. 1955 it was. I sang it in my high school talent contest down at R.J. Reynolds in Winston-Salem. And the principal took great exception to this next verse. It's kind of mild these days, but back in 1955 it was real racing. Almost got me kicked out of high school. I met a pretty girl one day up behind the bar. She wanted me to stay and play up behind the bar. She taught me how to kiss and pet. That's one game I won't forget, because we still play that same game yet. Up behind the bar. I wish that I could go again out behind the bar and do some things that I did then up behind the bar. You may think that it ain't no fun to be a poor old farmer's son, and you just don't know what all we done out behind the bar. I got my education out behind the bar, and I'm not fooling no siree. Passed each examination out behind the bar, but it almost made a break out of me. That's the truth. That's the truth I've ever told you. I mentioned that on February 6th I celebrated my 50th anniversary with the Opry, and I was backstage, Jerry, in the dressing room with some of my fellow seniors. I'm now what they call a senior member of the Opry, which means I'm one of the old guys. And I was sitting in the dressing room with some more fellow seniors, and I won't call any names, but we were talking about the good old days, you know how seniors do, and about how they don't write them like old Hank used to, and how country music don't sound very country to me unless I tune in WBRF 98.1, and it does, doesn't it? But so many radio stations today call themselves country, and it doesn't sound very country, you know. Thank goodness for 98.1. I hope y'all keep it glued to the dial all the time. But anyway, we were talking about things like that in the good old days of country music. And one of my fellow seniors turned to me and said, "Hamilton, we heard you've been married to the same woman for 50 years. And I said, "Well, no, not actually. We've been married 52 years. I married my high school sweetheart from Winston-Salem, and we've been together for 52 years. And he said, 52 years with the same woman? And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You ain't no real country singer." I don't know what that means. I guess you're supposed to have 2 or 3 wives, spend a few nights in jail, and go to rehab or something in order to qualify as a real live country singer. But the funny thing about my 50 years on opera is my first record was not a country song. The first song that I recorded down in Chapel Hill at the campus radio station at the University of North Carolina was in 1956. I know a lot of y'all probably weren't even born when this came out. If you were, you probably long since forgot about it. But it wasn't a country song, it was a teen ballad, all about a teenager who couldn't afford to give his sweetheart a box of chocolates or a bouquet of flowers or nothing. Just one rose and a little candy bar called a Baby Ruth. I'm going to take y'all on a little trip down memory lane right now to June the 18th, 1956. I think it was about 7:30 in the evening. The campus radio station at the University of North Carolina, and we recorded this. We had a quarrel, a teenage quarrel, teenage. Now I miss blue, as I know how to be. I can't call you on the phone. I can't even see you at your home. So I'm sending you this present just to prove I was telling the truth. Dear, I believe you won't laugh when you receive this rose and the baby Ruth. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do. I could have sent you an orchid of some kind, but that's all I had in my jeans at the time. But when we grow up, someday I'll show up just to prove I was telling the truth. I'll kiss you too, then I'll hand to you this rose and the baby Ruth. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do. That was my fault. I didn't throw it very straight. The other night I was in a church out in Tennessee, and I sang that song and I threw it out into the audience, and it bounced off the pastor's wife's forehead. So I'm not sure whether I'll be